Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Friday?
I'm good. Post-Christmas show, right after Christmas.
Yeah, a lot to talk about, a lot of games to get into. MVP talks are heating up now. Lamar Jackson had a tremendous Christmas, and now, of course, MVP talks are coming straight for him. He leapfrogged in the odds. He still says stays at number 2, but his odds have... Josh Allen's odds went from, I think, minus 500 to minus 200, somewhere around there. We'll talk about it. We'll get into it. But let's talk about last night's game because it is important for your prediction, which is actually pretty important because a lot of people ripped on you for that. The Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. It seems like Thursday Night Football keeps getting very disappointing matchups. This one ended with a grand score of 6-3, but in the favor of the Seattle Seahawks. Caleb Williams, not the ideal game for him whatsoever. He ended the night with 16 of 28, 122 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. He did get sacked 7 times, a passer rating of 53. Geno Smith, 17 of 23, 160 passing yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He got sacked 3 times. You said that the Bears would go 5-12 historically before the season started. You made your big schedule prediction for the Chicago Bears and gave them a 5-12 record. They are currently 4-12. The last game is against the Green Bay Packers, so it's looking like it will be 4-13 most likely. So this game was very interesting. Couldn't really get the run game going for a large part, but I'm curious how much of this loss, because I don't know who else to blame at this point. Fired the head coach, fired the OC. I don't know who to blame. So how much blame would you put on really the remaining person to kind of blame? How much blame would you put on Caleb Williams?
I don't think I put too much blame on him. I think, he's been sacked 67 times now. That's the second highest for a rookie quarterback. Carr has the highest at 76. Back in, I think, 2002.
First season.
That really shook that guy's. He had a promising career, and that being sacked so many times and getting beaten up, not just his rookie year, but beyond that too, ruined him. And I think they have to watch out that doesn't happen to Caleb Williams. I think they should sit him the last game of the season.
Not going to happen.
That would be my recommendation. I mean, why let him get sacked even more? Their offensive line is pitiful. They lost two of the starters there, and it showed, giving up 7 sacks. My takeaways in this game, the lowest scoring game of the season at 6-3 with the Seattle Seahawks scoring all of their the huge 6 points, 3 points in the first quarter, 3 in the second quarter, nothing in the second half. The Chicago, on the other hand, scoring 3 points in the second quarter and nothing the rest of the game. I mean, it was ugly. That game was ugly. My takeaways on the Seahawks, they didn't need to win to keep their playoffs alive, and their offense played like it. I think they were undisciplined. They had pre-snap penalties. They had the personal foul by Metcalf. They only had 265 yards of total offense. Those 2 field goals were their only scores. The worst performance in over a year for their offense. They won because their defense was ferocious. I think that the defense played great, although they're playing against the Bears, who really have no offensive scheme with Thomas Brown stepping up to be the head coach. He was the offensive passing coordinator before that. And their OC, another passing coach, stepping up. I mean, they really their last play of the game, they went for it on 4th down with 4th and 10 when they could have tried, I guess, a 58 or 59 yard field goal. Why not try it? They weren't going to make the 4th and 10. It was raining out. Probably wouldn't have made the field goal either. But why not try that? I think that's what they should have done. For the Seahawks, their only path to the playoffs is as NFC champions. The best shot is for Arizona to beat the Rams on Sunday, and then for them to beat the Rams next week. That's a tall order. I think the Rams look really good. They've really come around. They're really gelling at the right time. Kua and Stafford, that combination is lethal. Their running game also playing quite well. They also have Cooper Kupp. So, I now like the Rams to win the division, but Seattle still has a chance. Some of the highlights here, I think Geno Smith, underwhelming, 17 of 23 for 160 yards. He was sacked 3 times. He fumbled it once. He's going to have $6 million of contract escalators on the line next week against the Rams, with the potential of winning a playoff berth. So that's big for him. We'll see how he fares. I mentioned Williams, the defense playing well. Williams entering the game with the most sacks, most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year. 7 more sacks last night, with the defense really smothering Chicago's offensive line, which was beat up with 2 of the starters missing. The run game, Seattle's run game was pretty good, 122 yards and 25 carries, even with Kenneth Walker out on IR. I think the pivotal play was Farrell Brown stripped by Kyler Gordon on a pass. He ran it in for what was called initially a TD, but was called back because he was ruled down by contact. The Bears, my takeaway, the Bears are hard to watch, just the bottom line. They only generated 3.1 yards per play. The best drive was 67 yards that only netted a field goal. The O-line, as I mentioned, missing 2 starters, gave up 7 sacks. They wrap up the season that fell well short of many expectations, but not mine. They're going to be in Green Bay to wrap up that. They're going to lose that game, I think. So they'll wind up 4-13. I think that playing against Green Bay with the defense they have and the weaknesses of the Bears offense and all the sacks that Caleb Williams has had, I'd sit him for this game.
There's 0% chance they're going to sit him for this game. So to answer the question, I'm saying a lot. Because, again, it's all about expectations, all about performance. You go up against the Seattle Seahawks, who, yes, they're fighting for a playoff spot, But you actually have been playing a little bit better offensively than you have been early on in the season. Your turnovers were essentially zero. He had, over 340 straight pass attempts without an interception, and this one came on sort of just like a screw it, let's try to just find a completion on a 4th and 10. So it's not like it was just a bad read. It was just you were getting pressured by like 7 or 8 guys, so you had to get the ball out relatively quickly. I don't appreciate him just dropping back 15 yards to try to get the ball off, though. Get it out quick. And there were moments in this game where Caleb Williams had opportunities that he's made actually in this own game, rolling out to his right even while being pressured and making an on-the-run throw. But it seems like there were plays in the pocket where it was the exact same drag route and you needed to throw an anticipatory throw that he didn't do, because we've seen this season where Caleb Williams does not throw guys open, but he throws when they're open. So it's not a great trait to have. Could it be learned? Potentially, but you have to have some level of confidence in your guys to get open and some confidence in yourself to kind of throw your guys open, because they won't always be as open as they were in college. But I find it kind of funny how everybody's blaming Matt Eberflus and this coaching staff for like poor game and clock management. But in this game, you're down to now your interim head coach, who was your interim offensive coordinator, who originally got hired as your passing game coordinator. And we look at the game, that final drive, it was a 4th and 1. You call a timeout, then Caleb Williams runs it 1 yard to get to a 4th and 1. Then the Seahawks call a timeout. Then you get a penalty false start. It was a false start on Jake Curran. That's a 5-yard play. So now it's like a 4th and 5 now. And so what happens? You decide to bring out your punt team, then you call timeout, then you bring out your offense, who then Caleb Williams makes a great on-the-run throw for a gain of 14, and it's great. Then you keep pushing the ball down a little bit more. And then it gets down to, with about 38 seconds left, it's a 1st and 10. He throws an incomplete pass. Then you call a timeout because you couldn't get the playoff, it seems. And then it's deep pass. Then the Seattle calls a timeout, and then another deep pass. Meanwhile, you could have just dinked and dunked your way to at least gain some yardage. Instead, it was deep ball. It's just bad. You burned the timeout early. There was no need for it. And then you get yourself into a sticky situation, because now it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, and now 4th and 10. And it was deep shot. So for me, I think Caleb Williams actually bears a decent amount of the blame in this one. For one, expectations of the season. You come in with honestly the best situation for a rookie quarterback. Nobody disputed that entering the season, that Caleb Williams had the best situation to enter for your first year. You had Rome Odunze, you have Cole Kmet, you even have Gerald Everett as your backup tight end, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. It seemed like everything was good. And then if you want to go to the other side, your defense for the second half of the year was ranked as the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. So you come into this and your expectations are, a lot of people think, at least be very competitive in the division, at least make a wild card game, and some people had you at least winning at least one playoff game, which was utterly ridiculous. I had them going 7-10, so this for me is also very disappointing. But when we talk about the offensive line, it was already ranked bottom 10, and some people didn't believe that. They thought it was around the middle of the pack. But honestly, some of these pressures that Caleb Williams gets are kind of on him, and he kind of admits it too. Nearly 20% of his entire pressures for the entire season, which, by the way, he is the 3rd most pressured quarterback in the NFL. Geno Smith and C.J. Stroud are 1 and 2. Caleb Williams number 3. Essentially, 1/5 of all of his pressures are due to him generating his own pressure. He's stepping up into pressure. He's leaving the pocket way too early. He's antsy in the pocket, not making the plays where it matters. So for me in this game, you had an opportunity to prove all the doubters wrong, to prove you wrong, to prove your prediction wrong, and try to come out with a big-time win to stop the Seahawks from at least making the playoffs, because they need to win the division. And I think there's a high likelihood that after the Rams win, or when the Rams win against the Cardinals this week, that the Seahawks will be eliminated from playoff contention. So you had an opportunity to take control of this game, a lot of opportunities. It was in the rain. Yes, your offensive line wasn't great, but the Seattle pass rush hasn't been that great all season, and you gave them an opportunity to completely shut you down. You score 3 points. This offense is abysmal. I brought up the stats last week. Your defense is worse now that you fired Matt Eberflus. You thought that he was the significant problem. Maybe it's the roster that you have constructed currently, and that goes on Ryan Poles, that goes on Warren, your team president, that goes on your organization, that goes on your front office. That does not necessarily go on you, or hell, even on Matt Eberflus, because It was really Justin Fields last year that we had the similar problem. Bad offensive line. You had one significant weapon, and then you decide to move off of Justin Fields. Caleb Williams comes into actually a better situation with the amount of weapons around him, but the offensive line was the major piece, and that's what I emphasized going into the season was your offensive line is the biggest weak link, and it turned out to be true. But Caleb Williams, nearly 20% of the pressures for the entire season were due to his own fault. And in this game, it was around 33% of all of his pressures. He got pressured 55% of the time. But essentially 33% of all of his pressures were due to him generating that pressure. So for me, to answer this question, I put a decent amount of blame because who else is there to blame? You have an interim head coach. You have an interim OC. Your players are all healthy, essentially, around you. Get the ball out on time. He's not trying to throw guys open. He's waiting for them to get open. You see Jaden Daniels throw guys open. Bo Nix throw guys open. You see these young quarterbacks. Hell, even Mac Jones was able to throw some guys open, during his very short tenure with New England. Drake May has thrown guys open before. Caleb Williams doesn't. He doesn't have that anticipatory nature to him. You can't blame Matt Eberflus. He won 4 games. Thomas Brown's won 0. You can't blame Shane Waldron anymore. He got fired. You can't blame Chris Beatley because guess what? He's an interim OC. Who is there to blame besides Caleb Williams? He's the quarterback. You said the quarterback holds the ball in every single play, which is true. Mm-hmm. Why can't a guy who is comped as the next Patrick Mahomes or the best prospect since Mahomes, he has the traits of a Mahomes, come out and at least look anything like him?
But it's because he's been sacked 67 times this year, the highest in the NFL. He has no offensive line. You have to have those tools. You've got to have
his offensive line's not even.
You got to have an offensive line that can at least protect you a little bit, so that you can make some plays. I mean, we saw Mac Jones when his offensive line was bad, and he wound up getting hurt. But he got the dancing feet in the pocket. He couldn't stand in there. He got gun shy. And you haven't seen that from Caleb Williams. He's tried hard. I think that he's suffered.
Gun shy. He waits for people to get open. Throw guys open.
I think it's. He's a rookie, and I admit he has a lot to learn, but I don't blame him for the losses that the Bears have had. I blame the front office, the Poles and Warren, the way they battle with one another, and emotionally after the loss on Thanksgiving Day. Emotionally deciding, let's can Eberflus after they let him go make a press conference earlier in the day, like 2 hours earlier, saying, I'm going to be here grinding it out.
That was 4 weeks ago. I'm talking about this game, the Seahawks game.
I'm just saying this. Look at all that's happened there. The unstable leadership at the top that trickles down to the coaching staff, which has been a musical chairs, a revolving door, and so with people being fired, and people coming in who are not competent to hold the roles that they do. Thomas Brown should not be an interim head coach. I don't think.
So who's left?
That's the problem.
You're going to make the running back coach? I
don't know.
The Saints have their special teams coach right now being the interim head coach. Look where they're at.
They don't have anybody. They shouldn't.
Well, they shouldn't have fired Eberflus.
They shouldn't have fired him. I agree.
I would have had a new head coach to start the season. Not for the first time in your franchise's history.
Well, they should have done that
mid-season.
too. But that's on the leadership. So there's lots of issues here. I don't put it all on Caleb Williams. Could he have played better? Could he have played better? Sure. You can say that about anybody. He probably should have played better, but to be sacked that many times, just terrible.
Well, guess what? This season, only 76.7% of all the pressures on Caleb Williams were the offensive line's fault. That ranks 32 out of 42. The offensive line is bad, yes, but to say that it's instantaneous pressure on Caleb Williams, no, because Caleb Williams has the 8th most quarterback-generated pressures in the NFL this season. The offensive line is ranked 32 out of 42 on their fault. One of the lowest in the league.
32 out of 42 is pretty bad.
32 most out of 42 offensive line generated pressures. That means that they're actually one of the best.
Oh yeah.
In the assignment.
How
rate.
Does he have 67 sacks then?
Because nearly 20% of the pressures he gets are his fault.
Okay, well, 20%.
He also stays in the pocket very long because he's waiting for guys to get open. He doesn't throw his receivers open. He doesn't have the anticipation of a top-tier quarterback. He's the number 1 overall pick. He should be much better. We rip on Bryce Young for doing so poorly his first year with Carolina when he actually had significantly worse talent and at the time a very bad offensive line. We rip on him last year and say C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback. Caleb Williams has exponentially better receivers around him than Bryce Young has even to this day, and yet we're like, no, it's okay. His offensive line's bad. We'll give him a pass. Why? Why do we give him a pass?
He's a rookie.
I just said Bryce Young was a rookie last year, but we ripped on him for playing so poorly, and he had nobody.
I said
and
that
he still has nobody, and he's playing better. Right now, I think he's playing better than Caleb Williams has in the past 5 weeks.
Well, we'll have to see what happens, but I think the Bears need a major reset. They should clean house in the front office there. Just start over. They're going to have a new head coach. It's going to be very important who they pick. I'm not sure who really wants that job. It'll be interesting to see who gets it.
Ben Johnson's going to get the job. Hands down. Ben Johnson's going to get the job.
We'll see if he wants it. Think he
Why
wants
wouldn't
it?
he? Why wouldn't he? You have Rome Odunze, you have DJ Moore, you have DeAndre Swift. You need to improve the offensive line. You have your star quarterback on a rookie deal. Your defense is still okay, but not great. At least it's good, but it's underperformed this season because, once again, they were the number one scoring defense last year. You have pieces in play. You just got to make it come together.
You're going to end the season with 11 losses in a row.
I agree with you. All right, let's get into our next topic here. So the Steelers have now lost 3 straight. This was their 3rd game in 11 days, and they ended up losing it big time to the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes had probably his best game all season, 29 of 38, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a passer rating of 127.1. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson had another very pedestrian game, 23 of 37, 205 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, a passer rating of 65.7. The Ravens have now overtaken the Steelers for the number 1 spot in the AFC North. The Steelers dropped to 10-6. This was a big game for both the Chiefs because now they secured the number 1 spot in the AFC, and the Steelers lost their top spot, like I just said, in the AFC North. So I'm curious. This is looking pretty interesting because we talked about at the beginning of the season how difficult these last few games were for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now it looks like they've hit a decent dry spell now. So I'm wondering, do you think that with the recent lack of success for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that this is lining up for the Steelers to be one and done in the playoffs?
I think that's a possibility.
Do you think it will happen? That's the question.
Significant possibility. Who will they be going up against, do we think? What's it look like?
I think they're the 5 seed, so they'd be playing the Texans if they are the 5 seed.
They may be able to beat the Texans. The Texans look pretty poor, too. I mean, look how badly they lost to the Ravens. 31-2. I mean, that was a pitiful game. That was hard to watch. I mean, this game, Kansas City against the Steelers, 29-10, Kansas City. The game was kind of, I'd say Kansas City had it in hand by the end of the first quarter. They were up 13-0. The Steelers scored a touchdown in the second quarter to make it, look like a game. And then in the third quarter, they traded field goals. And then the fourth quarter, Kansas City running away with it with 13 points to make it 29-10. You mentioned the stats for the quarterbacks. I think Russell Wilson looking more like his days with the Broncos than his days with the Seahawks, and his games now with Pittsburgh, having lost 3 in a row now against tough teams. Admittedly, I mean, he lost against Philadelphia, he lost against Kansas City, he lost against the Ravens. Those are all teams that can compete for the Super Bowl. The running game for Pittsburgh still good. I mean, that was. That was going to be their mantra this year, that they could run the ball a lot, and Harris had 74 yards on 13 carries, Warren 71 on 11 carries, and Wilson 55 on 6 carries. They outgained the Kansas City on the ground by a significant amount, but they couldn't stop Mahomes. They had 3 TDs. My takeaway for Kansas City locks up the number 1 seed for the playoffs, rounding into form to make a deep playoff run and potentially win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row. It's the 4th time in 7 years they've won the number 1 seed. The road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City this year. That's going to be tough for any team going in there because it's going to be very cold. Mahomes, he said getting the number 1 seed's like winning a playoff game. Their winning formula: a lot of Mahomes, a dash of Kelsey, a splash of speed, and a defense that quietly goes about its business, even though in this game, Chris Jones was out with a calf injury. And as I mentioned, the Chiefs got up 13-0 and were never really threatened by the Steelers after that. Tomlin, his comment was, that sucked, to be blunt. That's all he had to say about the game. Mahomes now 4-0 against the Steelers, 17 TDs, 1 interception. Kelsey's TD is 77th, passes Tony Gonzalez for franchise record. Only Gonzalez and Jason Witten and Kelsey now have 1,000 receptions as tight ends. I was surprised. I thought Gronk would be up there in that, but he's not. Kelsey wound up eight catches for 84 yards in this game. That's their third win in 11 days. They're probably happy to get a little bit of a rest now before they play the Broncos in their last game. The Steelers have gone 0-3 in the same stretch, losing to Super Bowl contenders, as I mentioned, the Eagles, Ravens, and Kansas City, losing each game by by at least 14 points. That's big, I think. They could wind up starting the playoffs on the road after they had a 2-game division lead 3 weeks ago. Pittsburgh never had the ball with a chance to take the lead in the second half of this game. I predicted the Ravens would catch the Steelers and win the division. It looks like that's going to happen. The Steelers need to beat the Bengals Sunday to regain some momentum.
So, do you think that they're one and done?
If it's against the Texans, I'd say no.
And that's where I agree with you. If it was against any other team, my guess would be, yeah, they'd be one and done. And that actually is probably the best situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is to drop out of the AFC North, so you end up playing the Houston Texans. Because I think if you go up against, currently, let's look at the playoff contention right now. It's Denver and Los Angeles. Those are the 6 and the 7 seed. I'd say you go up against one of them. I think it'd be a decent shot. You are one and done because both have really good defenses. And if Bo Nix can get hot, which he has been able to do, and I think he will this week, then I think that you would be in for a rough day. I mean, this team lost to Jameis Winston, who is a pick-six machine, and that's actually one of their 4 losses in the last 6 games is against Jameis Winston, who currently got benched for DTR, who barely completes passes through the first half of games. This Pittsburgh Steelers team is like most, if not all, Pittsburgh Steelers teams who are built with a defensive coach, so they rely heavily on defense. The offense has put up essentially the same production every single week throughout the entire season, but this team relies heavily on the defensive stoppage power, because these are the numbers the entire season when they allow less than 20 points and when they allow 20 points or more, and the numbers are very different. They're undefeated if they allow less than 20 points. They're 2-6 if they allow more than 20 or more points. The points per game are essentially the same. The total yards per game are essentially the same. The points allowed, that's where there's no offense. Zero offense for the other teams, because when they allow less than 20, the real number is 12.7 on average per game. Meanwhile, they score damn near 30. So the defense is heavily relied upon in these big-time games. Opponent total yards per game is sub 300. Meanwhile, it's over 300 if they score 20 or more points. And then the turnover differential, this is big. They have a plus 13 turnover differential when they allow less than 20 points, and they only have a plus 1 when they allow 20 or more. This is a defensive team. If the defense cannot force a team to score less than 20 points, it doesn't matter if it's Justin Fields, or hell, even if it is Russell Wilson out there, because the production level is essentially the same. Because if you go look at these games, actually, and you look at the lack of points that are scored, hell, even a lot of the points that are scored, a lot of these games are Justin Fields games too. I mean, Justin Fields went 4-2. We have to remember, Justin Fields went 4-2, and they decided to move off him after he had a great game. Actually, the team had a great game. It was their first 30-point game of the season against the Las Vegas Raiders. Russell Wilson comes in there, and it's essentially the same. They put up 37 instead of 32, and they only give up 15. They only give up 15 instead of 13. So the production is essentially the same. It's just a question of who is the leading factor at quarterback. They're still the second worst red zone offense in the NFL. Their defense, honestly, if you break it down, they're just really good against the run. Their passing defense is bottom third in the league. So if you could pass on these guys like the Chiefs did, you're going to have massive levels of success. I mean, the Chiefs absolutely blew them out of the water, and the Chiefs don't really blow a lot of teams out of the water this year. They're the only team with a winning record, at least even a decent record, to score 30 or fewer points in every single game this season. They haven't scored over 30 points a game. In a single game, rather. And yet the Steelers couldn't get anything done. Their defense couldn't stop Mahomes through the air. Kelsey had his best game of the season, arguably. He had 8 catches for 84 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, like you said, he broke Tony Gonzalez's touchdown record for the Chiefs. So, yes, I think that if it was any other team, Denver, Chargers, even the Texans have a shot, very, very small, but a shot. I think the Steelers will be one and done. But because it is the Texans, I think that they will be able to beat the Texans. My guess is that point spread might be 3.5. The Steelers on the road in that game. I would still give the Steelers maybe a 2.5 point spread, which would be a neutral field 5.5 point spread in favor of the Steelers. But I mean, if this team doesn't stop if this team allows 20 points or more, they're gonna lose because they lose a lot. They lose 6 out of 8 games.
So their winning formula then is to concentrate on the defense, try to keep the other team under 20 points. I would also say they should go more with the run, to even emphasize it even more than they have. That's been a winning formula for them as well. Take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands a little bit more because he's been making turnovers.
Well, though they have been emphasizing the run. There's only been 2 games this season under 100 rushing yards.
Russell Wilson had how many attempts in this game? 37?
Well, he's not a runner. He's an old quarterback. You're not expecting him to run out there.
No, I wouldn't let him run. I wouldn't let him run the ball. I'm saying they should emphasize the run more.
And I'm telling you, they've had 2 games the entire season with under 100 rushing yards. They're the 10th best rushing team in the NFL. They don't run it at an efficient clip, though. They're 24th in rushing yards per attempt.
Russell Wilson threw the ball 30.
They're third in rushing attempts this season.
But in this game, in this particular game, he threw the ball 37 times.
Yeah, because the Chiefs had the third best rushing. They're down by 19. They lost by 19 points. If you're down by 10 points, you're not running the ball.
At the end of the first half, they were down 13-7.
Yeah.
So,
and I guarantee I don't have the first.
In fact, they were still only down by 6 points going into the fourth quarter. So they just couldn't stop the Chiefs in the fourth quarter. That was the problem. They should have run the ball more and kept the ball out of Mahomes' hands.
Well, they're third in rushing attempts. So unless you want them to run the ball,
I'm talking about this game, the Kansas City game.
I'm talking about the entire season, because they do emphasize the run.
They didn't emphasize it enough in this particular
because the Chiefs have a very good rushing defense.
Well, Chris Jones was out of the game.
And it didn't matter because they only allowed 10 points in this game and held Russell Wilson to 162.
To me, that was because the game plan was
202 rushing yards. What are we talking about here? They had 202 rushing yards. They averaged 6.5 yards a carry.
But he also threw the ball 37 times.
Because you had to. Run it more. They ran it 31 times, 11 more times than the Chiefs did.
The Chiefs had nothing on the ground.
Here?
The Chiefs had nothing on the ground.
Right, because the Steelers have a terrible passing defense.
So I don't think.
So hold on. They ran it 31 times. How many times would you want them to run it?
40 times.
40 times. Yeah. You were down by 19. You lost by 19 points.
You still had a chance in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Yeah,
but why you were down by 6 points.
But why would you waste time by running the football when you're losing? When you're winning, you run the football.
One drive in the fourth quarter to score a touchdown, and the extra point, you'd be up by 1. Instead, you put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands. He turns the ball over. He wastes time with incomplete passes, stop the clock. You let Mahomes come back on the field. They score 13 points. I think there was a game management and strategy issue for the Steelers, so they've got to think about that going into the playoffs.
The interception came on the third drive.
Much more conservative on offense. They should run the ball more.
The interception came in the first quarter, in the third drive. It wasn't like late in the game in the second half when they were driving and then he screws them over.
Was it in the end zone with that interception?
Let's see. It was on their own 23-yard line. So it wasn't driving. It was out of the Kansas City red zone, essentially. It was 3 yards out of the Kansas City red zone. They're third in rushing attempts. They're third in. It's the exact same logic as the Atlanta defense. You blitz one of the highest rates and have the lowest quarterback pressure percentage in the league. They have the third most attempts and the 24th best yards per attempt on the run. They don't run it efficiently.
I'd emphasize that more.
Emphasize what?
The running game.
They're third in rushing attempts.
I know you keep saying that, Nate, but in the Kansas City game,
first?
Yeah, I would like them to be first.
They're not going to outrun. They're not going to outrun Philly. They're not going to outrun the Bills.
The season's only got one more game. Okay,
right? How much?
You're gonna play one more game. They should try that strategy against the Chiefs and see how it goes.
They don't play the Chiefs.
I'm sorry. They're playing. The Steelers are playing the Bengals in the last game, which will be a tough game for them because the Bengals still have a whisper of a chance of getting into the playoffs. So that's going to be a tough game. But I think they should really go de-emphasize Russell Wilson because he's playing like he did when he was back with Denver in the latest stages of his Seattle career. I personally feel the guy is washed up.
Well, I've been saying that for a year now, but to say that they need to emphasize the run more against a defense next week that is significantly worse on the pass than they are on the run, you want them to. It's the logic of the Ravens in the AFC Championship game last year. You want to play into what their strength is.
Well, they're going to have
just like you want them to play against.
If that's going to be their strategy, it's going to be their strategy getting into the playoffs. Then they're going to have to run the ball against some pretty good run defenses. They might as well get ready for it. That's what I would do. I would run the ball more, even more than they have been now this last game. And against the Texans, they should really be running it a lot too.
Well, the Texans, I'll take a look at their running defense right now, and I don't think it would really matter. Yeah, I would pass it. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I mean, the passing defense is 6th. The running defense is 12th. I think it's going to be difficult to be efficient anyway. They have the 8th best total defense in the NFL.
I don't think they're going to. I think they'll win against the Texans.
I agree with you.
I don't think they'll win against whoever they play after that. I think they'll be beat.
That's fair. All right, coming up, who will win the MVP? Lamar put up a great performance against the Houston Texans this past week on Christmas Day, but Josh Allen still remains the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. We'll discuss who will win the MVP coming up after the break, as well as Week 17 picks and predictions and my Harvey Hot Hand, so stay tuned for that after the short break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the content.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, Lamar Jackson put up a great performance against the Houston Texans, and the only points came on a Derrick Henry safety for the Texans. Offensively, they could do absolutely nothing. After Lamar's great game, this pushed him even closer to Josh Allen's MVP odds. Let's actually bring up the MVP odds right here. Josh Allen's still the odds-on favorite. These odds brought to you by FanDuel, by the way. But yeah, Lamar Jackson is creeping so close to Josh Allen. Meanwhile, Saquon Barkley and Jared Goff, they're plus 2,000, plus 2,500 respectively. And then Joe Burrow is plus 20,000. There's a 0% chance he's probably going to win MVP, but those are the odds. So this is the big question. We did this last year and got a lot of hate for saying Lamar last year was the MVP. Then after Christmas, after the Ravens decimated Brock Purdy and Purdy threw 4 picks and got benched, Lamar Jackson hands down was the favorite and ended up winning an MVP. And not being unanimous because one first place vote out of the 50 went to Josh Allen last year. So I'm curious, who do you think will win the MVP? Lamar, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, whoever?
Well, the odds have tightened in the past week or so. 2 weeks ago, Allen was minus 1,000. This past week, minus 500. Now, as you show, it's down to 250 with Jackson closing the gap. I had him at 160. You got him at 180.
Those odds are by FanDuel.
Oh, I see. Okay. So that's a minor difference. So it's still pretty close. Josh Allen, top 5 quarterback, number 1 in the QBR, 11 rushing TDs is big. Just looking at some of the history here, the last 10 winners have been quarterbacks. Since 2001, only 3 non-quarterbacks have won. They were all running backs. Since 2001, all the winners had at least 11 team wins, except 1 year when Adrian Peterson won it, the Vikings had 10 wins. As I said, and the numbers show the ratings, the race is getting tighter, given Lamar's performance on Wednesday, Christmas Day. He had 2 passing TDs and 1 rushing TD. Allen has the Jets and the Patriots left and should perform well against both, although he didn't do so hot against the Patriots last week. They really hemmed him in. It was really one of his poorer performances of the year. Close game. They were Bills winning 24-21 and not covering. Jackson leads. He also leads in many of the statistical categories: passing yards, touchdowns, passer rating, and rushing yards. His passer rating, 121.6, is close to the record of 122.5 set by Aaron Rodgers back in 2011. I think the voters place heavy emphasis on team success. The Ravens took over the division lead just this past week, and before that, the Bills had their division lead almost a whole year, and they've locked up the division. That kind of eliminates that factor favoring Allen with the Ravens now in first place if they can close it out and stay in first place in their division. The last 7 MVPs have come from the number 1 seed, which will be broken this year, right? It's not going to be Mahomes. They're the number 1 seed. In the NFC, there isn't a candidate that's close except Barkley, and they won't. Doesn't look like they're going to be the number 1 seed. The Ravens now in first place in the AFC North, a division lead, extra votes that Allen would have gotten for being in the division lead. I see are now gone, as I just mentioned. Also, I think voter fatigue has effect on this and favors Allen. Jackson's already won 2 MVPs. I think people would like to see a new MVP with Allen, who has never won one. I'd say both quarterbacks would be deserving of the award. We'll see who wins. If you had to give a name, though, who would you say by the end of the year will be the MVP? Allen. You would give it to Josh Allen, not Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to get it. I'm not sure. Well, I'm asking your opinion. Who do you feel deserves the MVP? I guess I would say Josh Allen, because wasn't expected that the Bills would be this good this year. They really didn't have elite talent at wide receiver. They went out and added Amari Cooper, but he really hasn't had the kind of impact you might have thought. Shakir has really been their number 1 receiver. They have a rookie there, Coleman, who's made a contribution. But Josh Allen's been the big difference for them. I mean, his ability to run the ball when necessary, his competitiveness, his decision-making. Lost a lot of starters last year, has stepped up some. In the team concept, the team wins. The Bills won more than we would have expected. We didn't have the Bills even winning the division in our early season predictions. I give it to him.
I just have a question for anybody out there who's saying that Lamar Jackson is the hands-down odds-on MVP favorite. Josh Allen has no shot. How do we care about stats? Because now that's what we're hearing about Lamar Jackson. He has this stat, that stat, the other stat. Stats matter. So how much do stats matter? Because last year, Josh Allen beat him in everything that matters. Total yards, touchdowns, yards per game, everything. But yet Lamar Jackson, because he was 13-3, had a nice completion percentage, and,
team wins.
Yeah, he went 13-3
wins.
last year.
They were the number one
Josh
seed
Allen
last
went
year.
11-6.
The MVP comes from the number one seed generally.
Right,
This is
so-
an anomaly of a year that's not going to happen this year.
Well, to me, the number one seed doesn't really matter to me because I
But
was
it does in
expected.
terms of picking the MVP.
I think, well, it's the best player on the best team generally, and I think a lot of people, if you look at the numbers, would say that the Ravens last year, I know that maybe the record didn't say it, or the record did say it, but it was the defense that really made them special because they were putting up numbers like the 2000s Ravens defense. But, you know, that was a massive part of it. Lamar Jackson went 13-3 last year and put up very decent numbers. I mean, very respectable numbers. He had nearly 4,500 total yards, but Josh Allen had 4,800 total yards, a little bit more. It was a difference of 331 total yards, and the touchdown differential was 29, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the lowest touchdown total by an MVP in NFL history for a quarterback. And Josh Allen had 44 total touchdowns.
I think
so.
that,
Do stats matter? Do the
stats-
numbers matter for that quarterback?
I think they matter, but
So if they matter, then Josh Allen should have won MVP last year. Because Josh Allen was statistically the better quarterback.
As I mentioned,
I want to say I'm agreeing with you. The best player on the best team generally gets it.
Yeah.
The number one seed, yes.
voters place heavy emphasis on
Correct.
team success.
Correct.
The number one seed, generally the best player on the best team.
But the Ravens
which is
are not
usually
the best
quarterback,
team.
touches the ball every play.
Yep.
Usually gets it. I think one of the reasons that two reasons that Lamar got it last year was team success. They were the number one seed. And number two, he surprised, I think, people with his passing ability. Todd
Monken.
Monken came in and brought in some additional receivers. His passing was much better, although they probably would have done better in their playoff game if they'd run the ball more. We've talked about that. But the passing, I think, his ability to step up and really be more of an elite passer, I think and being the number one seed and the best team were the reasons he won the MVP last year, even though Josh Allen may have had the better stats.
I remember getting a lot of hate for saying that the Ravens had drafted all these number one, round one wide receivers, and people had an issue with it. Well, how about Rashad Bateman now? 8 touchdowns, 680 yards, 17 yards per reception. It's a pretty good receiver, right?
Yeah, I think he is.
Zay Flowers, I know he was a rookie last year, and people have some issues with his drops, but he's already a 1,000-yard receiver and has a massive impact, especially yards after the catch. Is he a good receiver?
Yes, he is.
Mark Andrews, aging, terrible start to the season, right now currently leads the Ravens in touchdown catches. Is he still a good tight end?
He is.
Right, and here's the biggest thing. This is why I think Josh Allen deserves the MVP. Yeah, people could go to his Texans game and look at 30% completion percentage. But doesn't Lamar Jackson also play poorly in some of the biggest games of his career? Look at the playoffs. He performs poorly against the Steelers. He had arguably the worst game of the season against the Steelers this year. Josh Allen could have bad games. Mahomes has bad games. Burrow, Herbert, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Aaron, all these top-tier quarterbacks have bad games. My issue with Lamar Jackson is in the biggest games, he crumbles. The AFC Championship game last year, I put a lot of blame on Todd Monken in the scheme, but it was Lamar Jackson who, I guess, went along with the scheme. John Harbaugh, again, he also gets blamed. Lamar just didn't play very well. They played
Lamar
into
threw
the Chiefs' strengths.
Key interception right at the end, near
Correct.
the end of the game. It was terrible.
Correct, but here's what
Zay Flowers also, the fumble
diving
at the goal line.
Yep, but no, here's why. The Ravens have a worse record when they actually, I think, offensively are significantly better. The Bills have a better record by losing pieces. Because a big part of why we thought the Bills wouldn't be as successful this season is the loss of their number one and number two wide receiver and the loss of a phenomenal center, Mitch Morse. And they were going to the season like, okay, well, now we have Khalil Shakir as our number one wide receiver. We drafted rookie Keon Coleman. And outside of that, who do we have? And they go out, and it's a shaky beginning. But now, they've won 9 of their last 10 games of the season, and they look great defensively. They lost their 2 safeties and Tre'Davious White, and we're like, how the and a couple of their top tier linebackers too, and also Matt Milano goes down early in the season before week 1, and we're like, how are they going to win games?
They beat the Lions,
and then Josh Allen does something we've never seen Josh Allen do. He got rid of the Brett Favre. He got rid of the massive amounts of turnovers and high production value, and he's become a better Justin Herbert when it comes to efficiency. Yes, he doesn't have the incredible numbers as he did last year, having nearly 4,900 total yards and 15 rushing touchdowns, but he's playing at a great level. He's playing at an efficient level. And yes, he could have some games where it's a question mark, but we have to remember Lamar Jackson lost to the Las Vegas Raiders, who 2 weeks ago were tied with the Giants for the worst record in the NFL. And one of the wins to their 2 wins at the time were the Baltimore Ravens in week 2.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Did the Baltimore Ravens dethrone the Chiefs week 1? No, the Buffalo Bills did. The Buffalo Bills beat the number 1 team in the NFL. The Ravens didn't.
They also beat the Lions.
They also beat the number 1 team in the NFC,
think,
who at the time you could argue were the number 1 team in the NFL as well.
And Josh Allen really, I think, single-handedly was the reason they won. 48 points.
Correct. He was the first quarterback since Otto Graham to have a rushing, receiving, and passing touchdown, something crazy like that. I think that was against the Rams, but still, he was incredible in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lions literally had to do an onside kick to try to steal a possession with 10 minutes in the fourth quarter just because Dan Campbell didn't trust his defense to stop Josh Allen. When a head coach has to do that in that moment, that early in the fourth quarter, you know that the other team knows that they can't stop you, that you're going to go down and score, probably a touchdown. So if we care about stats all of a sudden, now that Lamar Jackson's finally putting up stats, we have to realize that Derrick Henry, and it's the same argument you can give for Brock Purdy last year, it's the same argument I gave Jalen Hurts this year. Why is your team winning? Derrick Henry, through the first, 9-10 games, scored at least 1 touchdown in every single game, has been the biggest piece of your team, has nearly 1,800 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. You now are the best play-action quarterback in the NFL. You have a pass rating of over 135 on play-action and also have 14 touchdowns, 1 pick, and run it the 10th most times in the NFL. You have gotten better offensively for adding a piece. The Bills got better by losing pieces.
Yeah.
If that doesn't show your value,
I think we agree.
I don't know what
Josh Allen should get the...
I thought you would go Lamar Jackson, and I just want to add this. If Saquon breaks the record, if you break NFL history that's been standing for 40 years, I think you deserve it.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to get it, though.
If he does get it, I say if you break NFL history, I think you deserve it, in my opinion. Because now the Eagles had an opportunity if Jalen Hurts didn't go down to be the number 1 seed in the NFC, which then would have been best player on the best team, which would have been Saquon Barkley. But again, I know people don't probably won't say that, but I do think it could be the Joel Embiid of the NBA season, where Joel Embiid got that 1 MVP, and then everybody looked back and it's like, yeah, probably Jokic deserved it. I think that's the way we're looking at the Josh Allen-Lamar situation right now. Lamar's played great. I'm not saying he hasn't. It's just Josh Allen's done more with less. Just how it is. All right, let's get into our second to last topic here, which is our weekly picks. We do this every single week throughout the NFL season. We pick every single game and tell you who wins, who loses, and as well as who covers the point spread. Let's jump in with mine. I had a pretty decent week last week, 10-6, but I was 500 in the point spread. Started off great in the money line. All 3 of my picks ended up winning. The point spread for the Seahawks, 3.5s. I hate the 3.5s. You can win by a field goal and still not cover. I absolutely hate it. But let's get into it. Saturday's game, Chargers at Patriots. I'll take the Chargers here. Yes, the Patriots played great against a division rival that always seems to be tricky. Mac Jones beat the Buffalo Bills. I remember one time on my birthday, which was a crazy game after he played terrible that entire season. So yeah, there's some times where they can get a little bit tricky with one another, but for me, this is the Los Angeles Chargers. They have an opportunity to make it to the playoffs and right the wrong that they had about 2 years ago against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they were up, I think, 24 or 27 points entering the second half and completely collapsed in that second half. So give me the Chargers, give me the points. I'll take the Chargers on the road to cover the 4.5 point spread. I'm surprised it's actually this low for the Los Angeles Chargers. The next one, the Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Give me Denver +3. I've seen this in some other sports books as +3.5, but because we are using FanDuel's lines, they have it currently as +3. If it goes to +3.5, it'd be tremendous, but I'm going more so for the push when it comes to this one. The Denver Broncos defense, I think, will disturb Cincinnati and especially Joe Burrow, because that offensive line that Joe Burrow has is not that great. And I think that the Denver pass rush will get to him. I think Nick Bonito deserves way more credit than he's getting. I don't even think he's in relative consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, but his impact has been massive. When you're putting up the numbers he has and at the effective rate that Nick Bonito has done, I think you deserve more recognition than you have. As well as I think Pat Surtain will do something that I don't think the Bengals can afford to do, and that's shut down Jamar Chase, especially if T. Higgins will be out. I think that if Higgins is out, I think Pat Surtain will do a tremendous job against Jamar Chase, which then all you have is Chase Brown and a bunch of rookies and no-name guys for the Bengals. So I think that the Bengals will pull out the win, but give me the Broncos to lose by 3 or less. I'll take the tie. I'll take the push for this one. But yeah, give me the Broncos to cover, Bengals to win. Next was the Cardinals at the Rams. This is a revenge game. We have to remember early on in the season. Remember when the Rams were so banged up and all of a sudden Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray were connecting like Randy Moss and Tom Brady? Yeah, and look at where the Cardinals are at now. Look at where the Rams are at now. The Rams are looking like they could be potentially making another Super Bowl run. And meanwhile, the Cardinals have flummoxed down to a terrible record, and Kyler Murray looks, not that great. Maybe like you shouldn't have paid him. Maybe you should be looking at another quarterback in the upcoming future here. Give me the Rams with this one. Revenge game, Matt Stafford, team's healthy. Kyron Williams is dominant over the past 5 weeks. Give me a healthy Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. Give me them as well as to cover the minus 6.5 points. Next one, Cowboys at Eagles. Jalen Hurts got ruled out for this game, and as well as CeeDee Lamb shut down for the season. But here's where I think the Cowboys could at least cover. Their defense has stepped up massive in the past few weeks here, especially with Micah Parsons back. He's made a pretty decent impact. I would have actually felt way more confident if Overshown was still playing, but he's dealing with a massive knee injury. Basically, every ligament in his knee is completely gone at this point. He'll probably be back in not next season, but the season after in 2026, which is incredibly unfortunate. But for me, I think what this is going to come down to is all you have to do is do exactly what the Commanders did and stop A.J. Brown or limit his effectiveness, because then it's going to be the Saquon show all day. Kenny Pickett does not feel comfortable throwing to a bunch of other targets here. I think that if you could stop A.J. Brown, who is the biggest X factor, who is complaining a few weeks ago about the passing game not being where it is, well, guess what? Now your quarterback's in concussion protocol, and you're going to be stuck with Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, is not 100% healthy. I still think the Eagles will win. I think that they'll become one-dimensional. I think Saquon's going to go for the record. I think Nick Sirianni and this team knows that Saquon's going to go for the record. But give me the Cowboys to at least stop them and keep them within a touchdown here. Some places have it. It's plus 7.5. So if you find those, go for it. But I will take the Cowboys to cover, Eagles to win, though. Next one, Colts at Giants. The Giants are about to set some franchise records over here. Winless at home, winless versus the division, all of these things, stuff they haven't done in 50, 60 years, or sometimes at least winless versus the division they've never done in their franchise's history. That'll come next week against the Eagles. But when it comes to this one, I know Anthony Richardson's questionable, but even Joe Flacco out there, I don't think it'll matter because the Giants have a bottom 3 or even bottom 2 rushing defense, and Jonathan Taylor the past 3 weeks is averaging 140 rushing yards. They won't be able to stop him whatsoever. Give me the Colts. Give me the points. I'll swallow the 7.5 on the road. I'll take them to beat the pitiful Giants, who average just above 10 points a game at home. Next one's the Raiders at the Saints. The Saints just ruled out Derek Carr as well as Alvin Kamara, and the last time we saw them without Kamara, they put up a big fat goose egg against the Green Bay Packers. And I think the Raiders here, they're playing decently for the team of their caliber. Aiden O'Connell did a pretty good job last week against Mac Jones and that Jaguars team. Unfortunately, I picked the Jaguars to win that game, but they scored 19 points. They only allowed 14 points. And I think when Spencer Rattler's out there, they won't be game planning in a walk-in freezer, but I think that it won't really matter. I think the Raiders will, disrupt Spencer Rattler, who just isn't a very good quarterback. I'll take the Raiders here to win. It's a 1.5 point spread. I think I've seen minus 2.5 in some places. I don't think it makes much of a difference. I'll take the Raiders to win and cover on the road. Next one, Jets at the Bills. Bills are 9.5 point favorites, which last time they were 9.5 or more was last week against the Patriots. They were 14.5 point favorites, and they didn't cover in that game. I picked that as one of the picks for the Harvey Hot End, which comes up next. But in this game, I think they will cover, and I think they will win, because I think the Jets right now, there's so much stuff coming out about the Jets. You got Rodgers' new documentary on Netflix called Enigma that goes into his, journey through life and whatnot. I've yet to watch it. I will probably very soon. We may talk about it on the show. But when it comes down to it, I think the Bills right now, they don't have the motivation of taking the number 1 seed in the AFC anymore. But I think Josh Allen still has something to play for, especially Lamar putting up a tremendous performance against the Houston Texans. He still needs to play well these last 2 games to seal an MVP, his first one of his entire career. And if stats matter, then Josh Allen needs to start putting up a lot of stats, because if people are going to complain about stats and Lamar should win it based on his numbers, then Josh Allen needs to put up a lot more numbers in order to win this MVP award. So I think this is a perfect opportunity. Really, the Jets and Aaron Rodgers have really only found success through Rodgers and Adams. Outside of that, it's still not that great. Give me the Bills. Give me the points. I'll swallow the 9.5 at home. Next one, Titans at Jaguars. For me, this is a Mac Jones pick. I still believe in Mac Jones. I'll go down with that ship until he gets benched and he never sees the light of day as a starting quarterback in any situation. Injury, team wants him to start. Until I see that happen, I'm still picking Mac Jones. Mac Jones minus 1.5 point favorite at home against the Titans. Give me Mac Jones to win there. Next one's the Panthers at the Buccaneers. Give me the Panthers plus 8.5 at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucs still win, though, because last time we saw these guys go up against one another, it took a fumble in overtime for the Bucs to win this game. Otherwise, the Panthers would have kicked a field goal, and they would have won in overtime. I think 8.5 is a crazy amount of points. Yeah, for me, and especially with the way the Panthers have been recently playing, they've been playing much better. Bryce Young has been playing much better. Give me the points. Give me the Panthers plus 8.5. Tampa Bay, though, they do get the win. Next one is the Dolphins at the Browns here. I think DTR is starting, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't heard anything about who's starting for the Browns, so it could be Jameis Winston, it could be DTR, but I'm pretty sure it is going to be DTR this week. I think the Dolphins right now, I'm pretty sure they're out of playoff contention. They may still have a shot. But I think that they still have a very, very small shot. Yeah, so I'm calling it less than 1% just based on the matchups, because I think that after the Chiefs sealed the number 1 spot, the Broncos will be very lucky and probably play the Chiefs' backups. So for me, the Dolphins, they need to get a nice victory here if they still want to stay alive, which I think is a very, very small chance of actually happening for them to make the playoffs. But with DTR at quarterback, he's not a very good quarterback, and especially, with the Dolphins having one of the craziest offenses, Tua getting the ball out in like 2.2 seconds, it's going to be hard for a Browns defense to keep up with that. Give me the Dolphins, give me the 6.5 on the road. I'll take them to win and cover. Next one, Packers at the Vikings. I saw something recently that since 2020, the Vikings and the Packers have split this series, which is quite interesting. But for me, though, I'm taking the Packers, and I don't think it'll actually be very close. I think the Packers may blow out the Minnesota Vikings. I think the way that Jordan Love has been playing and the way that Josh Jacobs has been playing, I think the Packers are going to do a very, very good job at just having an explosive offense and really kind of exposing Minnesota's defense a little bit. I know Minnesota still blitzes the hell out of every single drop back, but for me, I'm taking the Packers. I'm taking Jordan Love to upset the Minnesota Vikings and obviously cover a plus 1.5 point spread. Next one, Sunday Night Football, Falcons at the Commanders. Michael Penix didn't play that badly. Yes, he did have one pick, but it was because Kyle Pitts doesn't have any hands. So in my reality, he doesn't have any interceptions because he didn't throw a bad ball. Kyle Pitts just couldn't catch for a damn second. So I'm going to say the Falcons, they cover a plus 4.5 point spread because I think the way the Penix, he's really an anomaly right now. No one has a lot of film on him. He had a couple snaps before last week. I know there's one full game of film now on him, but I don't think that really matters that much. The Commanders, they've been a hit-or-miss team offensively and defensively. I think Bijan Robinson will have a nice game in this one. Give me the Falcons to cover, but the Commanders will end up getting this big victory on Sunday Night Football. And finally, Lions at the 49ers. The 49ers were eliminated from playoff contention, and the Lions are still fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. What's interesting is, if the Vikings lose this game, and what do I have the Eagles winning? But if the Vikings lose, the Lions actually, I think, either clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC, but I know for a fact they clinched the NFC North. So there's an opportunity for the Lions to actually maybe take their foot off the gas just enough to not risk a bunch of their players getting injured because they keep dropping like flies here. They need to get healthy, and they desperately need that number 1 seed in the NFC. So give me a nice victory over a 49ers team that is reeling, that Brock Purdy, he's trying to play for a contract that I'm sure we'll have a debate on in the offseason at some point. Does he deserve the projected $60 to $65 million, that we thought maybe last year that he could deserve? But for me, I think the Lions get a big-time victory Monday Night Football. They cover a minus 3.5 point spread. I hate those 3.5s. But I do think the Lions will get at least a 4-point victory over the 49ers. And those are my picks. It's nice to start off 3-0 in the money line and at least 2-1 in the point spread. But those are my Week 17 picks.
Okay, well, very interesting picks there. Some of them my picks. I am happy that I went 11-5 last week, 10-6 on the point spread. I'm now positive on the point spread, above 50%, and almost 66% on the win-loss. So closing out, I hope strong. I hope this week will help. Point spreads here, I'm taking some chances, but we'll see what happens. As you say, we're both 2-1 on the point spread for the first 3 games and 3-0 on the win-loss straight up. So off to a decent start. With the games that remain, I like the Chargers to beat the Patriots and cover the 4.5-point spread. The Chargers number 10 in the power rankings. The Patriots down at number 28. The Patriots 3-12. They can't stop turning the ball over. That's their problem. They could have won that game against the Bills last week, except Stonehands Ramondre Stevenson, who fumbled the ball once and also couldn't take a swing pass, bounced off his hands and wound up being a lateral, and the Bills fell on it in the end zone for a touchdown. That was the difference in the game. It was 24-21. I mean, and Drake May throwing an interception as well. So, they got to stop turning the ball over. If they could do that, man, they can win some of these games. But I don't see that happening in this one, and I do think the Chargers will find a way to win. The Broncos are the Bengals. The Bengals fighting for their lives here. The Broncos 9-6, number 7 playoff seed now. They're ranked number 11 in the power ranks. The Bengals number 16. The Bengals have a dynamic offense, one of the best. Their quarterback Burrow. Really, if they were a winning team and they were up there in the playoff hunt, I think he would be much better, much higher ranked in terms of the MVP chances. But he's had a great season. But that's not the case, but I do think the Bengals will find a way to win and cover. The Cardinals against the Rams. I'd love to see the Cardinals win this game, so it set up that big game against the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams next week for the last game of the season to see who wins the division. I don't think it's going to happen. The Cardinals, they coming out of their bye, they were leading the division. They played terrible since then. A record 7-8. The Rams, just the opposite. They've been winning lots of their games here down the stretch. They're 9-6. They're peaking at the right time, number 12 in the power ranking. I see him covering the point spread and winning this game. Cowboys at the Eagles. Cooper Rush, heck, a commendable job there as a backup quarterback. It's been 4-3. Brought the Cowboys back to 7-8 now, 20 in the power ranking. The Eagles 12-3, number 4 in the power ranking. No Jalen Hurts. So that I think that tightens things up. Saquon Barkley going to get a chance to break the NFL rushing record without Hurts in there. They're going to be handing him the ball a lot, particularly with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. I think the Cowboys will defeat the point spread there, and the Eagles will win the game. The Colts at the Giants. The Giants, a pitiful team, last in the power rankings, 2-13. Just abysmal. The players that seem to have given up. I think Daboll and Schoen ought to be let go here and start over again. The Colts, on the other hand, the performance by Taylor last week, over 200 yards. He'll have a chance to do that again against the Giants' running defense, which is one of the worst. I see the Colts winning this game and covering the point spread at 7.5. The Raiders at the Saints. This is a game that, I don't know, many people will be watching. The Raiders at 29th in the power rankings. It's the Saints number 23. The Saints 5-10. The Raiders 3-12. Rattler there, Spencer Rattler. I really, he's hard to watch at quarterback. I guess he'll be in there. I'm not sure. I just see the Raiders finding a way to win this game, covering the very small point spread at 1.5. Jets at the Bills. And the Bills are going to win. I think the Jets will find a way to cover just because their defense is pretty good. The Jets 4-11, 26 in the power ranking. The Bills, a Super Bowl contender, having beat the Lions and beaten Kansas City, the other two top teams. Josh Allen on an MVP run here, number 2 in the power rankings. I think they'll pull out this game. I do think it'll be close. The Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like the Jaguars to win and cover. the Titans are just terrible. I mean, they turn the ball over so much. Mason Rudolph, who I like the quarterback, man. He takes a lot of interceptions. I think he threw 3 last week. They're 4-11, 25th, and they're 3-12, 31st in the power rankings. Jacksonville not much better, and the power rankings at 30, and they're also 3-12. Mac Jones will be playing again in this game. I think it will be not much of a game to watch, but I do think the Jaguars will find a way to win. Panthers at the Bucs. This is a must-win for the Bucs. They got to get to 9-7 and hope that Washington can beat the Falcons, so they get back to at least a tie in the division. And the Falcons have the tiebreaker, having beat the Bucs twice this year. So they got to count on Washington to win that game, and they've got to win this game. And then they hope they'll win the game next week and hopefully win the division. I had them coming back and winning, but they lost that game last week against the Cowboys. How'd that happen after they played so well for coming out of their bye? But Panthers are not a pushover here, even though they're 25th in the power rankings at 4-11. They played much better. Bryce Young looking more like an NFL quarterback lately. I think this will be a close game. I don't think the Bucs will cover the 8.5-point spread, but they will win. Miami at the Browns. I like Miami 6 and covering the point spread at 6.5. The Browns, who knows what's going to happen at quarterback there. I feel bad for Jameis Winston. I think he has a lot of talent. Just can't stop throwing those interceptions and the pick sixes. They aren't even playing him now. It's questionable who's going to play quarterback for the Browns in this game. They're 3-12, 27th the power rankings. The Dolphins are the whisper of a chance to make the playoffs at 7-8. I think they'll win. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I do think they'll win and cover this game. Green Bay at Minnesota. This is a very interesting game. If the Vikings can win this game and then beat the Lions, they'll be the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're 13-2 right now, number 5 in the power rankings. Green Bay, on the other hand, a loss by only 2 points at Lambeau against the Vikings early in the year. As you said, they generally split the series and head-to-head competition here. Green Bay playing very, very well down the stretch here. Love playing like he did last year down the stretch. I think they're, Troy Aikman said nobody really wants to face these guys. And I do think Green Bay is going to find a way to win this game on the road and beat the Vikings. Sunday Night Football, Falcons at Washington. I like Washington to win and cover. I think Penix looked okay last week, but he's playing against the Giants, who've given up. So now he's going to be playing against Washington, 10-5, 8 in the power rankings. It's a real NFL team with a lot to play for. And so I think they're going to win this game and cover, and I think they'll make Penix look like a rookie. The Lions at San Francisco. San Francisco, what an abysmal year, 6-9, 21st in the power rankings. Brock Purdy not playing anywhere near the way he's played the last couple of years. CMC out almost the whole year. Just a lost season for San Francisco. The Lions, on the other hand, 13-2, 3 in the power rankings. They got to win this game. They want that 1 seed. I think they'll find a way to win and cover. And those are my picks.
All right, there we go. Now, you beat me in the point spread last week, which is interesting. I went 8-8. You went
10-6.
And you also beat me in the win-loss. 11-5 for you, 10-6 for me.
I am still beating you, though. Play.
68.9%, I think, win-loss for me in money line.
It's almost 66 for me.
Yeah. So it's been good in the straight up picks, not so good in the point spread. But I've said this ever since starting this topic. It's the Harvey Hot Hand. If those who don't know what the Harvey Hot Hand is, it's where I pick 5 teams and 5 games that you should bet on if you are sports betting to cover the point spread. We've had a not great season. Last year we had 62%, I believe, in the Harvey Hot Hand. This year it's about 53.5%. But based on the average sports book, you need about 52.8% in order to get your money back. And so we're sitting decently pretty right now. Last week we went 3-2. We have a 46-40 record this season. So let's jump in already. Let's go. Week 17's edition of the Harvey Hot Hand with the first matchup of the week.
Colts at Giants.
So give me this one. The Giants are on the verge of doing some historical stuff for their franchise. Worst outright record in the NFL. The last time they did that was 1966. Winless at home. Last time they did that was 1974. Winless versus the division. They've never done that in the franchise history. They could do that next week, and you bet that's going to be a pick for the Harvey Hot Hand next week. And at the number 1 overall draft pick, last time they did that was 1965. So two of the things they've never done since actually 3 things that they've never done since the merger, which is utterly ridiculous. The Giants average 10.6 points per game at home. That is absolutely terrible, and as well as they give up 24.8 points per game at home as well. Jonathan Taylor, last 3 games, he had 25 carries on average, 140.3 rushing yards per game. The Giants, and also I would add also touchdowns, 4 total touchdowns and 5.5 yards per carry. The Giants defense, they're 2-13. They have the second worst rushing defense in the NFL. It's really bad. I think Jonathan Taylor, and I know Anthony Richardson right now is questionable to go for this game. For me, that doesn't matter. I don't care if it's Joe Flacco, you or I, or Anthony Richardson. Doesn't matter. The Giants are an abysmal team at home. Give me Jonathan Taylor, this relatively dominant running game that the Colts have. The Colts will cover the minus 7.5 point spread and win 20-10. The next one.
Panthers at Buccaneers.
Interesting. I'm taking the Panthers here for the Harvey Hot Hand. They've covered 6 of their last 7 games. And the last time these teams played, a fumble in overtime was the only reason why the Bucs even won the game outright. They did not end up covering the point spread. It was a 5.5 point spread. They did not cover that. But, they had an opportunity to actually lose the game, but they got a fumble, which is massive for them. They ended up winning that game. But Baker did not play well in that last game. 63% completion percentage, 235 yards, passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, a pass rating of 69.6. It was a pretty bad game for Baker Mayfield. But Bryce Young, and especially this offense, have been shockingly impressive, and especially Bryce Young has. The last 7 games compared to his first 19 games, his first 19 games, he was 2-17, and now he's 3-4 in his last 7 games. His team only scored 12 points per game. Now they're scoring 22.7. They're averaging 40 more total yards per game. The touchdown to turnover ratio is significantly better. Passer rating went from 71.2 to 84. He's been incredible, based on his own standards the last 7 games compared to his first 19. I think Tampa, they just came off a bad loss against the Dallas Cowboys, but with the division game and the Panthers playing well, I mean, they actually gave the Eagles some massive worries. 8.5 points is way too much for a Panthers team that's improving week to week and a Bucs team that's been wavery all throughout the season. So give me the Panthers to cover the plus 8.5 point spread, but the Buccaneers do get the win 27-21. The next one.
Cowboys at Eagles.
This one for me, this is an interesting one, another division game. Kenny Pickett will be the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles this week as Jalen Hurts remains in concussion protocol. If the Cowboys could shut down A.J. Brown like the Commanders did, or at least limit his impact on the game, I think the Eagles will become a one-dimensional offense, a.k.a. run through Saquon Barkley, and that might actually be pretty good for the Dallas Cowboys, who their defense has been playing significantly better. The last 5 weeks, they've only given up 105.8 rushing yards per game. As it stands right now, that would rank 9th best in the NFL. The defense also has taken the ball away a lot. In the last 5 games, they've taken it away at least once in every single game. With 4 of the 5 games, they've taken the ball away 2 times or more. They even had a 4 takeaway game in one of the last 5 games. So the defense is playing much better. I don't trust Kenny Pickett to put up a lot of production at all against the Dallas Cowboys. I think the defense will do a nice job against Kenny Pickett. I know CeeDee Lamb's out, but it doesn't really matter. I think Rico Dowdle is shocking people over the past second half of this season. He's done a tremendous job. So give me the Cowboys. I think Cooper Rush is playing shockingly well. I think better than Dak Prescott was playing earlier this season. Give me the Cowboys to cover. The Eagles still get the 28-24 victory, but the Cowboys do cover the plus 7 point spread. Next one.
Cardinals at Rams.
Give me the Rams here. Rams minus 6.5. I'll take it. The Rams are on a 4-game winning streak and have won 8 out of their last 10 games, and they've covered against the spread 7 of the last 9 games. We remember earlier on in the season, I think it was week 2, Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray could not miss. Randy Moss and Tom Brady 2.0 it looked like. But the Rams were also banged up. Offensive line decimated. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua on IR. Kyron Williams didn't really have much of an impact. Matt Stafford not playing great because he didn't have a lot of his weapons. But now the Rams are healthy again. The Cardinals have lost the last 3 consecutive road games, and they're 2-5 on the road this season. They have difficulty stopping the run. Kyron Williams has rushed for at least 87 rushing yards in the last 4 games. And the Rams are oh so close to a playoff berth after a very, very rough start. If they get this one, I believe that they're in. The Seahawks really have no shot. So give me the win here. Give me the 31-23 win here. Give me the points. I'll take the Rams to win 31-23, cover this minus 6.5 points. And finally, the last pick, of the Week 17 edition of the Harvey Hot Hand is
Jets at Bills.
Give me the Bills here. Bills minus 9.5. Massive point spread this one, but I don't think it matters. After Lamar's strong performance on Christmas, Josh Allen needs to put up a great performance against the Jets in order to make sure he remains the favorite for MVP. The Jets have had some massive injuries for this week, and for the past couple weeks. Devontae Adams is questionable. Williams is questionable. Morgan Moses is questionable. Simpson's questionable. Tyron Smith and C.J. Mosley have been on IR. So they've had some big injuries in some key spots. The Bills have won 9 out of the last 10 games and covered 7 out of those last 10. I think the Jets, throughout the entire season, it seems, and especially as of late, the Jets have had opportunities to come out with big-time wins, but they can't generate consistent offense whatsoever outside of Devontae Adams. I think if the Bills focus defensively on slowing down Devontae Adams' production, I think Rodgers will seem uncomfortable. I think he'll try to target his old buddies. He won't focus on Garrett Wilson as much as he probably should. It'll be a lot of Allen Lazard, who has had drop issues since going over to the Jets. I think Breece Hall, his production has dipped a little bit. I'll take the Bills minus 9.5-point favorites. They win 38-28. Give me the 9.5. Harvey Hour, brought to you by Dr. Squire. You can get $10 off orders of $30 or more for new customers by using the link down below or going to www.drsquash.com/Nathan Harvey. That's www.drsquash.com/Nathan Harvey. / the Harvey Hour. And then you could get $10 off orders of $30 or more for new customers. Get that big time deal. We do this every single time we do the Harvey Hot Hand. I'll give you the picks just so you can reference them. I allow you to, critique my picks and give me your opinion on what I should change. Those are my picks there. Nobody could hear you, by the way.
I agree with all of them except the Jets Bills. Have
No one can still hear you.
The Jets covering. I might have swapped that game out for Lions San Francisco, where I think the Lions are going to beat San Francisco pretty badly.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm pretty much in agreement with you.
There we go. All right, those are the picks. Yeah, sounds good to me. Great show, great week. We'll see you. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, we'll see you New Year's Eve, December 31st, Tuesday, December 31st. We'll have a big show covering Week 17, and really we'll be previewing the final regular season week of the season. We'll do that Tuesday and Friday. I'm sure we'll have some cool things planned in the future. And also, for those who are here, still live on the stream, coming up relatively shortly, a big-time debate, a 5-year-long debate that me and a couple of my friends have had. Is Eli Manning a first-ballot Hall of Famer? We will be debating that. It could be for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, a full hour. We'll be doing, a full show, or at least one full topic here about whether or not Eli Manning is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. We'll discuss that in the upcoming future. I'm still working out the details of that, but that is for sure coming. But, in the more recent, history, we'll be here live on YouTube Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We will see you to cover Week 17.
Good night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift